someone forms their perception of a brand, what comes to mind? It might be they hear about it by word of mouth, or on an email thread, or a private message. In a nutshell, what's said about our company when we're not in the room, when we're not in control of the message. Now try the same experiment with our own personal brand. Is our immediate thought, how do we look as good as possible? Is it about how to curate the results that pop up when they search our name? Truth is, our personal brand has already been formed. We just weren't in on those conversations. Being active on our social media accounts can help, but we can also send the wrong brand message, shooting ourselves in the foot. When I first got on Facebook and X and LinkedIn, I feared that posting too much content would make me look distracted. When I did post, I felt a certain portion of them should be about my company, or at least something generic. If I did have an opinion, it had to be watered down. My thinking was I should talk about how my employer wanted me to talk. Turns out, that's the complete opposite of how I should have been branding myself. It wasn't until I hung out my own shingle that I realized being a generic sounding consultant made me a commodity. It meant my rates were set by the market and I had to be a price taker. Employees who act generically are also treated as commodities who must take whatever salary is offered. So regardless of where you sit, you're better off with a strong personal brand. Am I saying employees should kiss ass on social, posting about how much they love their work? No. They can post thoughtful criticisms about the industry. They can post solutions to problems that they and their peers face. Content like this boosts your brand without offending employers. They know you won't always be working for them. They'll bask in your halo while they can get it. But before you put out content, you have to get introspective on what your brand stands for. And it's hard for us to stare at a sheet of paper and figure this out. We get better results using a framework. This is where our guest can help. Since getting her MBA from Moscow International Higher Business School, she's managed some of Europe's largest brands, from Stolberg to Nestle and Shell. She's also an artist and a marketing consultant and a coach. Her 2026 book deals with this very issue. Let's go now to the French seaside town of Cannes to speak with the author of The Personal Branding Book, Daria Dmitrieva. Daria, you wrote a book. Would you please tell us the name of the book?
The name of the book is The Personal Branding Book, and the subtitle is Transform Your Identity and Unleash Your Potential.
So we're marketers, right? We know what brands are, and yet you have pointed out something to us that we should make sure we have a proper full definition of what a brand is. And a brand, you say, is not just a logo. It is not just a label. You call a brand a compass. What is it a compass for?
Oh, fantastic summary of one of the key ideas of the book. We marketers, we know very well how to create the vision for our brands, for our companies. But do we have the same for our own life? It's a big question, which I have started to ask myself. Brand helps us, the personal brand, the description of of ourselves as a personal brand, and our goal, our vision helps us to be more concentrated in life on our own values, to go where we want to go. And when we know who we are, and that's the question that I help to uncover through the questions in the book, through different exercises. When we know what our values are, what our strong characteristics are, and when we know what our values are and where we want to be in 3 to 5 years, and you remember that we create the brand strategies as well for 3 5 years, we have this vision, and this is not related only not only related to our professional life, but also our personal life, because everything is intertwined.
Yes.
So when we have this global vision of who we are, what we really want to achieve in this life, that makes our life easier and more interesting. I would put it this way. And we can, of course, achieve much more success in life when we know where we are going. To summarize, I would say being aware that you are a brand and what kind of brand you are and what your vision is. That's a compass in life. So it guides you where you're going. So you would not likely to be lost. Or if you are lost, you will find the way back on track.
And that's a great use for a compass. I can also see it as being something that the market that we are serving uses, that we can actually be a compass where they can say, I want to go in that direction. I have a sea of choices ahead of me, but I see where they're going and I want to follow them. And when you talk about how a brand is able to demand a certain price, you talk about luxury brands. You say that there is something about the promise that they give their buyers that we don't even blink at paying more for some of those brands. They just exude that kind of quality for us. Do you see there being a mirror for that or a counterpart for that in our personal brands?
Oh, absolutely. As you have read my book and that I just draw parallels in everything we do for our personal brand.
Yes.
So that, because of course we want to earn more. Because of course money is not everything, but they make our life
Yeah.
nicer and easier and more comfortable.
Yeah.
And we, of course, we want to have higher salaries. And indeed, we can learn a lot from the premium brands, how they position them in the market. When you enter the boutique, you immediately smell this nice
Sure.
perfume. There are these little details, and you will see on the shelves everything is neatly positioned. Of course, when you buy something like a premium quality, I don't know, shoes, and then of course the quality will be for sure for a very high standard. And then if we look out ourselves, of course, we need to strive to the best performance ever. Therefore, we need to continue education. We need to continue to learn from the peers, from from the market. And as well, we need to look at ourselves as a holistically, as a product. Uh, How do we appear? These basic elements, our style, our dressing style, how do we dress? Our makeup for women, for men, more like the haircut, and things like that. And in general, does it have this premium allure? So we know we are high specialists, we are top specialists, but outside, do we support this inner strength, inner professionalism by the way we look?
Yes.
Why I'm talking about this? I had different clients, and these basic things came to the conversations with some of the very high level specialists because they never paid attention to these little details. But again, when you start to build your personal brand, learn from the brands you like. I propose the reader to choose the brand you aspire to. Maybe it is a luxury brand of a car or shoe wear or clothings or watches, and observe how they build this image. So not only the inner quality of the product, but also the outer appearance. So the box, the packaging of the product.
Yeah. And so we don't leave it at just those things. They're important, but you delve way below those, what I would say, outward facing or superficial things. You proceed then to say to people, to even continue in this book, you're going to have to do some exercises. And some of the exercises that you give people are highly introspective. We need to confront this and understand why you think it's so necessary to do this. And I think one of the main ones that at least spoke to me was that we cannot fake positioning ourselves, because if we try to do it, we won't actually become it. It has to be our whole self. You say in one part that if you're a leader innovates, but a leader doesn't just innovate like, I'm going to change the outfit color that I wear. A leader innovates with purpose. So you're telling us that there are things intrinsic in us that we should tap into, and that is the only way that we can authentically act like that leader, that premium brand that we want our market to be attracted to. So give me a bit of what that kind of introspection exercise involves.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much for diving into the essence of the personal brand according to iBrand strategy. And indeed, so you can wear the most expensive clothing, you can smell with the most expensive perfume, but if you inside you don't feel right about yourself, you're not sure of yourself, and you don't have this inner vision of where you want to go and what value you want to create by your work, that premium clothing will not help. And therefore, one of the key ideas of the book is indeed to find this authenticity about your own personality. Each of us is unique, is a unique person on earth.
Yeah.
But below the marketing professionalism, and which is different to every one of us, there are many layers of our personality. And there are layers that I help uncover through the questions, these deep questions in the book that relate to, for example, life values. And life values, not high-level values like, oh, I value the comfort, or I value the money, or I value success, but deep, deep humanistic values. And every person has his or her own. Like whether it's intimacy of relationship, whether it is freedom, whether it is creativity, and things like that. And they're different for each person. And when you're connected to your inner values, when you're connected to your inner strengths and inner authenticity, you will not be, of course, you will not be depending on the outer clothing. Let's put it this way.
Yes.
So you're, in French, we say être bien dans sa peau.
Okay.
To be feeling well in your own skin.
Right.
And that's a great, it's a great way of saying of a person who is well connected to her himself, who is friends, who, in simple words, in simple terms, I call it friendship with oneself. It's also not a common thing to be friends. Are you friends with your own personality, with your own self?
Yes.
Are you support if you are in this love, if you are in love with your own personality, with your the way you are, and then it creates this aura around you, which cannot be faked and which cannot be covered by whatever you wear. And that's what it is about. This is much more deep than, of course, this outer marketing packaging story, which I was talking about in the previous question.
Yeah. And that deep feeling that we have that stems from the value, let's remember, we're marketers after all. We realize that the buyer in any product situation is interested in an emotional connection to the brand. So it is no different with us. And we have to get down that deep. And I thought one of the things that you confronted very well was fear. We live in a culture where people are putting up photos and videos all the time on their social feeds of apparent success. And it can easily cause each of us to be fearful, and it can cause each of us to get negative thoughts on things that we perceive to be weaknesses. Now, you say that, yeah, of course, there's a competitive environment, right? And so our strengths and weaknesses do need to be looked at vis-a-vis others. But you actually say, look, it's only energy. And what these things are, that if you can get down to the root cause, what you're looking at is just parts of yourself that you don't like, parts of yourself that you feel you still need to help. You call them, instead of it being something that you don't want anything to do with, you say it's like your shadow, right? And so your shadow, all of us have shadows that follow us, but we shouldn't try to obscure them. What we should do instead is take the gift. So tell me what you mean by, what is the gift of my shadow?
Oh, we're going deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
I like this. Indeed, because of course the current culture, it's very visual. We have to look good, we have to smile, and we have to behave as if nothing is going on.
Yeah.
But most of the people are scared, are unsure of themselves because they see the social media where they see the photos of more successful people and why I'm not successful. What's wrong with me?
Right.
This is an unfortunately, anxiety and these different psychological problems have been growing statistically
Yeah.
year after year.
Yes.
And therefore, I don't suggest to ignore this because the more we ignore the fears and all the other things which worry us below the surface, the more strong they become.
Yeah.
And then, therefore, I do say, and I do show, I want to show you that the gift that these fears are hiding is enormous. Because when we relax a little bit and when we are in our own room, nobody sees us, and we can allow ourselves to be as we are, weak, we have weaknesses, we have the fears, and we just list them down and look at them and ask them, okay, I have this weakness, but what did it help me to overcome? I have this fear, what is it protecting me from? So every negative trait that we have, we believe it's negative and it should be hidden. In fact, it can help us understand ourselves better.
Yes.
So by gift, something we didn't know about ourselves. So for example, I had this fear of slowing down. That's the fear I think many people would have these days. We're rushing. So I need to do this. I need to be always in a hurry. I have new goals. So this is called achiever syndrome.
Yes.
So it was stepped down and realized that it's a fear to slow down, the fear that I will not have enough time to write a new book, to launch a new project. And then what gift was hiding this fear? And the gift which was hidden behind this fear is the ability to enjoy life and to see things that other people don't really see.
Right.
What I mean is that after I realized this fear, I started to paint. I discovered that I can see and I can visualize things that other people don't really notice, and then I can transform them into the paintings. And that's the gift. And the painting, which I started to do much active. I do the exhibitions now, even. It helped me to slow down because you cannot be in a rush when you are painting.
Yes.
It's a meditative process. So thanks to being open and frank with myself and looking at this fear, I discovered a new lifestyle or new hobby. Now it's even a profession for me, an artist.
Amazing. Yeah, and that allowed you to be present where in the past one might be so eager to get on to the next project that you actually are flying through this project and you're not even paying attention. And so we need to do that. You listed a couple of good other ones that flip it around. So in one you said, well, others do it better. And you said, no. Think about, all right, but others aren't you. And you have your own story and lens. So your own version of how you do your thing is perfectly legitimate. Or you said, I'm not experienced enough. If we have that fear, you can flip that to, I've learned through enough experience, right? When we're trying to use this energy, that taking the gift from the things that are not necessarily our strongest points, you say that something actually happens to the energy of our brand. And here's a parallel back to the best brands in the world. They are ones that are sought after. They don't have to have large sales forces that are banging down people's doors, telling them they have to buy them. What is the payoff if we are using the gifts and we're understanding well how to channel this energy?
Oh, that's the essence really of personal branding, because when you are connected to yourself, when you love yourself, when you are happy about the way you are, incomplete, in not maybe with some characteristics which are not perfect, but you love the way you are, you start to distribute this energy around yourself, produce this energy around the self that is felt by other people. And indeed, you attract the right situations, the right offers. And why it works? Because we 99, you can say, you can Google 90% of 95% of our life is net energy.
Yes.
And
In the
you
universe.
metaphorically,
You're right. It's the
you
same with
can
us.
every every cell of us is part of the is reflecting the whole universe, and therefore we are all energies. So if we suppress whatever we don't want to show, and it blows up, and vice versa, if we allow the energy flow through us. So let's speak in marketing terms. So if we know our target audience, we know our clients, what their needs are, we know how to make their life better by whatever we do. And we are happy about how we do it, and we always progress and improve the way we address these needs. And then it's a completely different energy that we create by ourselves, by being in this world, and by what we do. And then the results are different. So you just think about the day when you wake up and you are in a bad mood, and then you are trying to do something through the day. Of course, most likely you will have problems
Yeah.
in the day, because this energy that you produce around yourself, and maybe the train will be late or something will happen. But if you did the meditation, you did some diary notes about, okay, what's going on in my head, and then you release these negative energies, and just you go out in the world, and then the doors open. So you get the contracts, you get the phone call from people who chase to talk to you, who chase you to talk to you.
Yeah.
I propose the reader to go to, so that you don't have to sell yourself, because selling yourself is, we know how to sell the products, but selling oneself, it's tricky. It's not that easy. Just become a magnet for the right people, right
And
opportunities,
attract them to
and
you.
the right situation.
Yeah.
Attract them to you, and that will be done through the right energies that you create in yourself.
Yes. Now, to be sure, and we're moving into the activation part of the book, you are obviously proposing that people do market analysis and do figure out who their target is. When you have done that and you figure out who ought to be attracted to you, you then get quite meticulous. And I love your ways of assigning us little tasks. So you just assign the task of having affirmations. But the next one that you have is you say, set your goals. And then when you're trying to figure out how to apply your energy to those specific goals, imagine like you were part of a company that within your own self, within the brand called you, that you have three people that work for you. You're the CEO, but tell us which roles you identify as being important for carrying out the tasks of building your brand.
Yes, absolutely. I invite the readers to expand their knowledge about themselves, because indeed this particular proposal is based on the strategy. And it's a legend, I think, but
Yes.
it works. He used to have three floors of people working for him. So the first floor was realizators, those people who make the movies. The second floor was the financial department, or in my book, I call them chief finance
Yep.
officer, or you
CFO.
can say the inner critic, CFO, yeah, and the inner critic. And the third floor, there were dreamers. And then, so each floor had their different tasks. So the dreamers, the inventors,
Right.
they
The
would need
artists.
to,
Yes.
the artists.
I think you call it an
The
art
artists,
director.
exactly. Yeah, I call my book art director. So the most important thing is that your dreamer, your inner artist, your art director needs to have this freedom to dream out of the box without the limits. There should be a part of you which is responsible for realizing the dream, some of the dreams, because of course, if you don't do anything, then nothing would happen. And then the third important element is the critics, the financial director in our case, CEO, the one who will criticize these crazy ideas that you have and choose the most relevant ones. And inner role which unites all of these three or is above all of these three roles, which can have a higher level vision. I call it a CEO of your yourself.
Yes.
So basically, you can say there is you can even metaphorically put a chair in your room and say, okay, now I'm in this role.
Yeah.
And I will look objectively on all of my ideas, on all the critics, on all the steps that were made so far. What is the next move? So that's the key role. That's why these are the bosses get the highest salaries, because they take the most important decisions.
Yes.
But then for our life, we make mistakes, of course, and we're human. But in certain areas, we do have this opportunity to learn, and in some critical moments, to step back and to say to yourself, okay, I'm the boss, my own boss. I'm my own CEO of my own company. Is this the right decision that I'm about to take? Or maybe I should step down or anything. So this is something that will help us to have an objective view of all the dimensions of what's going on outside and inside of ourselves.
Yeah. This is something that I've got to call out that permeates the book. You're mentioning things like using chairs, and you have, I think, outward sensory tasks that you strongly encourage us to try. And while we think that's crazy, let's all stop and ask ourselves, is there a time that we felt anxious? And was that anxiety up in our throat? Was it down in our chest? When were we feeling warm and our whole body was just flooded with good feelings? These visceral things, when we're wondering what to do, we should sometimes listen to how our body is doing it. And we should maybe give our mind, like you said with those empty chairs, the chance to place separate parts of our feelings in each so that each of them can have a turn in talking and it's not just a cacophony of inner monologue. I'm going to remind listeners that Jeff Bezos used an empty chair in allegedly high level staff meetings within Amazon, and the empty chair was there to represent the customer. And so we need to tap into these things. I think they're wonderful ways of making unexpressed, possibly subconscious aspects of ourselves come out.
Absolutely. And our indeed our body reactions, that's the best key to decision making. The more you are connected to yourself, the more you observe how is your body reacting and what these reactions mean, the better decisions you will start to take in your life. The better connected you will become, better connected to your inner intuition, which knows best. Nobody knows better than your inner intuition.
Right. Who knows you better than you? And then when we have all of this set, we can do some outward things. We can take, let's say, our goals for producing content, and we can start to take what we know, combine it with what we feel, and what matters to the audience. And you've got formulas for things like that. And you say that after we have worked on this and allowed time to go by, that when some milestone, such as that first large, if we're a consultant, a first large contract is signed, or if we are looking for a promotion in our workplace and we cement it, you want us to honor that event. What kind of things do you suggest, and why do you make a point of that?
Oh, I do make a point of that because it is indeed important to praise ourselves. I think I mentioned before already in our conversation that many of us are very strict to ourselves.
Yeah.
And we seem negative, yes, strict and negative. And we're more likely to notice what went in, I don't know, in a meeting or in a situation rather than what went right. And that can be practiced and changed. So the more you notice positive things, the more positive things happen in life in reality. And therefore, praising yourself through recognition of your own achievements and maybe not even waiting for this big contract because it can take a year or so or more
Yeah.
to get a big contract. But really, if you did something, if you feel you were productive during the day, then you really need to be consciously telling yourself some positive things. So this self-talk, it's also worth analyzing because many of us don't really notice. But if you pay attention, what do you say to yourself, and whether you praise yourself, whether at the end of the day you are saying you're being grateful to what you did. But the most important thing is to be grateful and to praise yourself for the efforts. Of course, not for the efforts that you had during the day, during the month, during the year, and that does help to be motivated and not to lose motivation. I think that's the key. When you have a great celebration, you feel more motivated to continue all
Right.
this
You say in the book to
efforts.
jump right back in and get back to it. And what I think you're also doing is you are allowing the passage of time to be noted. We are awful as humans of noticing time elapse. And what we're also then bad at because of that is taking something that isn't in existence right now and bringing it into existence later, even though, frankly, there are some very simple things we can do. You used the term earlier of the art directors. I think you said it in French, réalisateur. And those people, like in the word, realize, right? You are making real that which is not real. And all you're doing is you're using time. You're intentionally doing things over time that cause it to become real. And this is true in your own story, Daria. How did you come to this?
I have an interesting story I'm happy to share, and maybe it will be an inspiration for our listeners because I started with marketing. I was a brand manager in Nestle, in Stolwerk, the chocolate industries, and I loved my job. I learned a lot, and then I was a marketing director for a number of years in Shell. And my last roles were global marketing director for the brands within the Shell. But at some point of time, I lost my compass. My inner compass was vague, and I lost the meaning and excitement in the work that I was doing. So I had to take a sabbatical leave, and I studied coaching. I had a number of sessions with my personal coach. I became coach myself. So I had to rediscover myself completely. I had to reposition myself. I was a marketing specialist before. Then I came back after the sabbatical to Shell, and I said, now I want to create more value to the people. And I became executive coach for the marketing managers. I was working globally for 2 years as a executive coach, helping them to balance their life and to become more successful in whatever they were doing, to become more efficient and stable in their jobs. And through that experience, I realized, of course, I kept on learning and rediscovering myself. I can say after I had this personal crisis, it's a midlife crisis. Dante describes it it's
In the
very well.
Inferno?
I had all of these layers. I do advise to at least have read the summary.
Right.
This novel is really about the personal experience of the personal crisis, I think.
Yes.
And then, and therefore, little by little, I created my own system of understanding myself better, rediscovering myself, and then utilizing all of the experience in marketing that I had. I combined these two elements, psychology and marketing, and developed this approach, I brand, I call it, so personal branding approach, because of course, I one of the key requests from the people was to become more successful in whatever they do, and that personal brand answers immediately this request. That is what I suggest. That is what they need, and it includes in the work with themselves, inside of them, and the steps, the new vision of the steps that they need to take outside.
Yes.
So therefore, my book is based on my own experience because I had to start building my own personal brand. When I was in the side of the corporation, I had my business card with a Shell logotype and I was a marketing manager, big title. But then it was part of my identity. But when I stepped out of the
Right.
organization, I suddenly
Right.
realized, okay, I wrote on the business card marketing professional, I had a logo, but it
Well,
doesn't really...
that's what you do. That's not who you are.
Absolutely. And then it uncovered the amount of... That was the top of the iceberg, I would say.
Gotcha.
And therefore, this book came as a result of this whole journey. And it's ongoing. I can say there's no end to discovering yourself.
You have to punctuate that never-ending journey with things like honoring it. And as this episode comes out, the book is going to be launched. And I hope that you honor in some special way the fact that this book has come out and that you have now become a leader of the thing that you once struggled with. So I commend you on that. And if people want to find out where to get the book, or they want to reach out to you, Daria, find out what you do, where would we send them?
Instagram, and personally, if you reach me out in LinkedIn or Instagram, I'm quite active on these two social media platforms.
Fantastic. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I'm glad to have you, and this has given people better insight into what they do so they can do it even better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.